kindness is not inherently virtuous. That's a lie you were taught to keep you obedient. In reality, kindness is a tool, a powerful one, but only when it's wielded from a position of strength. When you're strong, when you have the means to dominate, the confidence to lead, and the presence to command respect, kindness becomes strategic. It's not weakness, it's restraint. It's the lion choosing not to strike, not because it can't, but because it sees no need. That kind of kindness intimidates people more than aggression. It tells the world, I could crush you, but I choose not to. That's power, that's dominance cloaked in control. Now reverse the scenario. Imagine a man who has no backbone, no voice, no edge. He smiles too much, apologizes for existing, avoids confrontation like it's a disease. His kindness isn't noble, it's pathetic. It's a leash. People tug on it whenever they want something. They see it for what it is: fear, fear of being disliked, fear of conflict, fear of being seen as mean. He doesn't give because he's generous, he gives because he's terrified. That's not kindness, that's submission. That man isn't respected. He's used, ignored, manipulated, and eventually discarded. And when he asks why, he'll be told the same thing weak people always hear: you're too nice. The truth is, when you're weak, your kindness is camouflage. You hope if you're pleasant enough, the world won't come for you. You hope if you're selfless enough, someone will eventually reward you. But the world doesn't work like that. It doesn't notice quiet desperation. It doesn't hand trophies to the invisible. It respects presence, decisiveness, fire. If your kindness is not backed by strength, emotional, physical, mental, it becomes a liability. People push your limits and you let them. You become a doormat, not a role model. Think of the kings, the warriors, the leaders who mattered. They weren't remembered for being nice. They were remembered for being feared, respected, and then merciful. Their kindness was an extension of their strength, not a substitute for it. When they helped someone, it wasn't to earn favor, it was because they could afford to. That's the difference. The weak man is kind because he hopes for crumbs of acceptance. The strong man is kind because he knows he doesn't need anyone's permission to be. And in the real world, especially the modern one, people are sharper than ever at smelling fear. They sense when your kindness is laced with insecurity. They see right through fake humility and self-sacrifice. They take what they want and move on, but show them controlled strength, the kind that chooses to be kind, not the kind that has to be, and suddenly the tone changes. You're no longer someone they can manipulate. You're someone they watch, they measure, they fear or admire, or both. We've been sold a fantasy that if you're kind, people will treat you better. That kindness somehow earns you a moral high ground, a shield of protection against betrayal, manipulation, and disrespect. But that's not how the world works. In reality, kindness is currency, and most people don't pay back. They take, they use, they exploit, not because they're evil, but because they can, because human nature, when unchecked, is opportunistic. And the more kind you are without standards, without boundaries, the more you're seen as a resource, not a person. The hard truth is that people don't line up to thank the one who always says yes. They line up to ask for more. Your generosity becomes their expectation. Your willingness to help becomes your obligation. The moment you draw the line, the moment you say no, suddenly you're the problem. You're ungrateful, selfish, rude. Why? Because your kindness wasn't admired. It was assumed. It was exploited. You were never respected. You were convenient. In school, in work, in relationships, it's always the same. The kid who agrees to every group task ends up doing all the work. The employee who never pushes back gets the extra load with no extra pay. The person who avoids conflict in a relationship ends up swallowing resentment until it explodes. Meanwhile, the assertive ones, the ones who speak up, get treated better. Why? Because people respond to strength, not kindness. They test boundaries, and if yours are non-existent, you become the test subject for everyone's selfishness. You see it everywhere in families where the most giving child is the one expected to sacrifice the most. In friendships where the one who listens ends up carrying everyone's emotional baggage. In business where the nice guy gets passed over while the bold one gets the deal. It's not about fairness, it's about perception. And if people perceive you as endlessly kind, they assume you'll never resist. You become the path of least resistance, and the world always flows downhill. Kindness with strength is rare. Most people are kind because they want to be liked. They want to avoid discomfort, they want to please, they're afraid of rejection, conflict, or judgment, so they give and give thinking it earns them respect, but respect isn't given to people who always bend. It's given to people who can say no without apology, who can walk away, who can draw the line and enforce it without raising their voice. That kind of person is dangerous because their kindness is a choice, not a survival mechanism. People don't admire kindness the way you think. They admire confidence, they admire independence, they admire power. Kindness only becomes admirable when it's wrapped in those things, when it's not about fear but control. Otherwise, it's just weakness wearing a smile, and weakness doesn't inspire admiration. It inspires consumption. The world doesn't stop to applaud the one who gives endlessly. It keeps asking for more. A lot of people waste their entire lives chasing approval, trying to be liked by everyone around them, friends, family, co-workers, strangers on the internet. They mold themselves into whatever version they think will be accepted. They soften their voice, silence their opinions, laugh when they don't feel like it, and agree just to keep the peace. They confuse being liked with being valued. They think popularity equals power, but it doesn't. Being liked is surface level, being respected is foundational. One is about comfort, the other is about authority. When you're liked, people enjoy being around you until your usefulness runs out. They like how you make them feel, how easy you are to deal with, how little resistance you provide. You become pleasant background noise in their lives. But the moment you make them uncomfortable, the moment you set a boundary, tell the truth, or do something they don't agree with, that like can vanish instantly. Because liking someone is emotional, it's fragile, it shifts with mood, convenience, and perception. It doesn't require consistency, it doesn't demand strength. Respect is entirely different. Respect is earned by standing firm, by being honest even when it's uncomfortable, by showing that you're not afraid to be disliked if it means being real. When people respect you, they may not always agree with you, but they don't cross you. They don't treat you like an option. They don't question your word. Respect creates weight. When you speak, people listen. Not because they like the sound of your voice, but because they know you mean what you say. The person who's obsessed with being liked avoids conflict. They smooth everything over, never say no, and pretend to be neutral even when they're being mistreated. They mistake passivity for peace. But deep down, they're not being authentic. They're playing a role, hoping the applause keeps coming, and it might for a while, until someone stronger enters the room. Then the liked person fades into the background, forgotten. Because being liked doesn't make you memorable, it makes you replaceable. Respect, on the other hand, demands presence. You don't need to be loud or aggressive, just unapologetically solid. You don't chase approval. You don't adjust your standards to fit in. You don't water yourself down to make others feel comfortable. That kind of presence intimidates some people and attracts others. But either way, you're not easy to ignore. You might not be the most popular, but you're the one people think twice about crossing. You're the one they talk about when you leave the room, not because you were agreeable, but because you stood for something. When you're liked, people invite you. When you're respected, people follow you. When you're liked, people laugh at your jokes. When you're respected, they ask for your opinion. Being liked strokes your ego. Being respected builds your legacy. One makes you temporarily comfortable. The other makes you permanently relevant. We've all heard the phrase. But most people never ask why nice guys actually finish last. It's not because the world hates kindness. It's not because people are cruel and heartless. It's because nice guys, the type who bend over backward to please, who avoid confrontation, who think being agreeable will earn them love, success, and status, are usually terrified of what it actually takes to lead. They're not nice out of strength. They're nice out of fear, and fear never wins. Leadership isn't about making everyone comfortable. It's not about saying yes all the time. It's about making hard calls, being decisive, taking responsibility, and being willing to stand alone if you have to. Nice guys don't want that pressure. They don't want the target on their back. They want praise without power, validation without effort, and results without risk. So they play it safe. They let others make decisions. They follow instead of lead. They're more focused on not offending than on making impact. That's why they lose. In every arena, business, relationships, friendships, the nice guy is the one trying to please everyone. He doesn't assert his desires. He waits for permission. He's always okay with whatever others want. He thinks his willingness to compromise makes him noble, but all it really does is signal weakness. And people don't follow weakness. Women don't crave it. Teams don't trust it. Competitors don't fear it. The world doesn't move for someone who's constantly stepping aside. Nice guys believe if they're just good enough, the world will reward them eventually. But life doesn't reward goodness. It rewards courage, clarity, and control. And those things require risk. They require making people uncomfortable. They require the ability to take hits and keep moving. Nice guys avoid all of that. They stay on the sidelines, hoping someone will notice how polite and patient they've been. But no one's paying attention. The spotlight isn't handed out to the most agreeable, it's taken by the boldest. Real leaders don't mind being disliked. They don't need everyone to agree with them. They move forward with conviction, not consensus. That's what separates the man in front from the crowd behind him. And until a nice guy develops the spine to take command, to embrace discomfort, to set direction instead of waiting for one, he'll keep finishing last, not because he's a bad person, but because he refuses to take up space. Fear of rejection, fear of criticism, fear of standing out, these are the anchors that hold nice guys down. They want love without dominance, respect without assertion, victory without a fight. But in a world built on competition, only the bold claim what they want. Everyone else watches from a distance, quietly resenting those who had the guts to step up and take it. People love to glorify kindness. They praise the selfless, the giving, the ones who always show up no matter what. But what they don't talk about is the cost. Kindness without limits doesn't make you a saint, it makes you a target. The moment your kindness becomes unconditional, it stops being a strength and starts becoming a slow path to burnout, resentment, and eventually collapse. Because no matter how much you give, there's always someone ready to take more. And if you don't draw the line, they never will. Most people who destroy themselves through kindness don't do it because they're weak. They do it because they confuse being kind with being responsible for everyone else's happiness. They carry burdens that aren't theirs. They say yes when they want to say no. They tolerate disrespect because they don't want to cause tension. They believe that sacrificing themselves is a noble act, that putting others first is always the right thing. But slowly, piece by piece, they erode. Their mental health suffers, their energy disappears, their identity gets lost in the chaos of constantly pleasing everyone else. The truth is, you cannot save people who are committed to using you. You cannot give endlessly without bleeding out. Kindness isn't supposed to be about self-destruction. It's supposed to be a conscious choice, not a reflex. When you lack boundaries, your kindness becomes expected, not appreciated. People stop seeing it as a gift and start treating it as a duty. And when you finally hit your breaking point, when you say, "I can't do this anymore," you're met with shock, anger, and guilt trips. Because you trained them to believe that your self-sacrifice was normal. Boundaries are not cruelty, they are clarity. They tell the world, "I care about you, but I also care about me." Without them, you're no longer being kind, you're being used. And the worst part, you allow it. Every time you let someone overstep, every time you say it's fine, when it's not, every time you neglect yourself for the sake of avoiding conflict, you send a message: your needs don't matter. Over time, that message becomes a belief, and that belief poisons your confidence, your sense of worth, your ability to stand up for yourself. Kindness without boundaries is manipulation in disguise, not of others, but of yourself. You lie to yourself and say you're doing it for peace, for love, for loyalty. But in reality, you're just afraid of confrontation, afraid of disappointing people, afraid of being called selfish. So you choose self-destruction over self-respect. You give and give until there's nothing left but bitterness and regret. And when you finally realize that no one is coming to return what you've poured out, it hits you: you weren't being kind. You were being afraid of saying enough. This world doesn't reward people for being liked. It rewards people for being relentless, focused, and obsessed with their goals. Somewhere along the way, society started preaching the lie that being popular, being well, liked, or being accepted is more important than being successful. People waste time trying to fit in, trying to be understood, trying to be nice so everyone around them feels comfortable. But life isn't a high school popularity contest. It's a battlefield, and you don't win battles by trying to hold everyone's hand. When your eyes are on victory, on dominance, on legacy, you don't have time to worry about how people perceive you. You're not here to be their friend. You're here to outperform them, outwork them, outthink them, and leave them behind. That's not arrogance, that's purpose, that's clarity. People who win aren't concerned with being liked. They're concerned with building something that lasts. They're not chasing applause, they're chasing results. The harsh truth is, the more you focus on winning, the more people will dislike you. Not because you're wrong, but because your drive exposes their laziness. Your discipline highlights their excuses. Your ambition reminds them of what they're not doing, and instead of leveling up, they'll try to drag you down. They'll call you cold, ruthless, arrogant, but that's the price of success. You can't be everyone's